Gun violence is a serious issue in America. In America alone, 306 people are shot every day, and 90 of them are killed due to gun violence. In America's inner cities, gun violence is an even bigger issue. In Chicago, from the start of 2016 to 7 months in, 2,005 people were victims of shootings. This is clearly a major issue in the United States, and it needs to be addressed. So, how are people trying to stop this? A massive amount of people around the country participate in protesting gun violence. They are simply asking for the violence to stop in order to protect the city's inhabitants and especially to protect the city's youth. Other protesters argue that the Second Amendment, which states that Americans have the right to bear arms, it should be repealed. These people demand that the NRA, the National Rifle Association, enforce much stricter gun laws in order to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. While these protests help, they don't fix everything, and repealing an amendment is incredibly difficult to do. So, what can we do to fight gun violence? The solution my partner and I are suggesting is for the implementation of IntelliGun, a smart fingerprint identification gun created by the private company Bukowiec Arms. This gun can't be fired unless its licensed owner is holding it on the fingerprint scanner. This means that the gun could not be used illegally at any time. It also means that it could be tracked instantly. Even licensed firearms currently take up to 3 weeks to track, if they can be tracked at all. So finally, what is our call to action? Support the IntelliGun. The more traction this gun gains, the better. A goal to strive for would be to make fingerprint identification guns mandatory with the NRA. And although this would be very, very difficult to achieve, you have to start somewhere.
In the United States, there are more than 300 million guns, and the population is over 320 million. That averages out to about a gun per person. Thanks to people like the NRA, there's no database of people who own the guns, because they fight for pro-gun ownership. People who need to trace guns usually contact the National Tracing Center, which is located in Virginia.
Hi, this is Danielle calling with the ATF National Tracing Center. I need your assistance with a firearm trace.
The question is, so why do you trace a gun? What's it going to do for you? You find a gun at a crime scene, and the first question is, well, whose gun is it? ATF's the only agency authorized to trace guns in the United States, and we do it right here in West Virginia. Not everybody is necessarily aware that there's not a national registration system for guns. Ultimately, if the gun's recovered in a crime, we will go to an importer or the manufacturer, and they'll say we sold it to a wholesaler, and that wholesaler will say we sold it to a retail dealer. We'll call that retail dealer up, and that guy's going to go look in his file for that yellow piece of paper that you filled out and pull it up and read the name off of it to us. And that's how it works.
The entity starts at the root of the problem and goes to the manufacturer, who then gives them the information, and then they proceed all the way down to find the name of that person. But this process can take such a long time that they might not even find the person who owns the gun.
Somewhere along that chain of distribution, somebody might have gone out of business. And when they go out of business, they have to ship their records here. We receive somewhere around 2 million records per month. When we get to 10,000 boxes in process, GSA, who owns the building, thinks that the floor will collapse. So they get stored in shipping containers that we rent outside in the parking lot. So all those documents come in, and they've got to be sorted, and then they get scanned.
This is an old single-action revolver. Most people would say it's a firearm because it can fire a round of ammunition, but according to the law, anything made in or before 1898 is not a firearm. One of the very few firearms in the United States that is not a firearm.
Most old stores usually store their files on microfilm, which is all skinned material. This makes it harder because one person will have to look at a bunch of scans to see which gun he needs to look for. Each roll of microfilm usually has around 10,000 photos or documents stored in it.
It's one guy. One guy has to look at 10,000 pieces of paper to find the gun. In the last several years, a lot of dealers, particularly bigger corporate operations, maintain their records in computer files. Well, that's great, right? You just take those electronic records and you can load them into your system. Well, it doesn't work like that, because let's just imagine a dealer who kept all his records on an Excel spreadsheet. An Excel spreadsheet is sortable by name. We can't have anything that's searchable and sortable by name. Basically what we're doing now is we have to have computer technicians isolate these records, and then we've got to turn it into something that's not searchable. So they got to convert them into PDFs, and then they actually convert that to a TIFF, and then they tag it with gun descriptions and FFL number, and then load it into the system.
Meet 19-year-old Kai Klofer. He developed a prototype gun that unlocks only with the user's fingerprint, just like a smartphone. This solves all the problems because gun violence can be reduced by a lot. Only the person who owns the gun can use that gun. It also can't be used against him. That gun is also registered under their name because they bought that gun and put a specific lock on it. This means that a gun could be found and tracked easily because it's registered to that person. By making guns only usable by their original owner, that prevents anyone else from using the gun, whether it's lost or stolen or used against them.
This is our most current prototype, a fully functioning live firearm with this smart technology built into it. Basically, we've inserted a fingerprint sensor into the side of the firearm here. And there's circuit boards and batteries and everything inside the gun that allow this fingerprint sensor to read my fingerprint and only unlock for the owner or someone the owner has authorized. This means that if I don't put my finger on the sensor and just try to pull the trigger, nothing's going to happen. But the moment that I pick the firearm up, grip it normally, and put my finger on the sensor here, then this firearm's going to be unlocked and ready to use.
If we can set it up so you can't unlock your phone unless you got the right fingerprint, why can't we do the same thing for our guns? And with that, I just have two more words to say. Obama out.